Hey, welcome inside the Fox Weather ROWI Report. We are doing a bonus episode. We're talking about college football impacted by severe weather, some NFL football internationally, and even back here stateside that's going to have some active weather over the weekend. So glad you have joined us for this bonus episode. Let's lock in on what's going to happen on Saturday. We have this severe event as a frontal boundary comes through. It's a cold front. It's going to dive into an area that's extremely warm and humid. That's going to allow this atmosphere to be unstable. We're going to be seeing some sparks fly. It's going to be Saturday afternoon, but mainly into the evening time where we could see some of those impacts. So if you are able to watch what we are talking about right now on the screen, showing you a list of the games that are in that area of concern. This is what we call the Storm Prediction Center, the SPC. They highlight this area. It's a level 2 out of 5 threat. It's got everything, but I think the worst of this is expected to be a damaging wind event. For football, that translates to, kicking's going to be tough. Throwing could be difficult. We'll get into more about some of the thunderstorms. Looking at this cold front, though, it's going to be spots like South Bend. And as you go up into northern Indiana, we got SEC going to Notre Dame. That is going to be a spot that we want to start out at first. There's a high risk of weather impact. This is a ranked matchup. This is big. This is Saturday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That's why they have the high risk of weather impact in comparison to many of those other games that we showed you that were in the same region. They're in that same threat area, but they're well before the actual threat. So as we take a look at this setup, we got precipitation completely maxed out. By the way, precipitation is a big word. It can mean a lot. It means rain, sleet, snow, anything that's falling from the sky. Right now, we're talking about rain. This game is so warm, we are looking at a rain event. Wind impact. This is a frontal boundary blitzing through. With that, as the front comes in, you're expecting wind gusts to increase. So it could be 40, 50, if not greater in its intensity, miles per hour, of course. And then temperature, somewhat of an impact, really not. When you're looking at this time of year, it's the fall-like impacts. Overall, looking at the concern, though, of this turning into a severe event. And with that, Jared, bring you in. That means lightning in the area, and that incorporates a different facet to the overall ROWI.
Yeah, lightning is a very big part of the precipitation impact as a whole, and that is what's making this go crazy. There is a very good chance that we see delay at some point as these storms sweep through. Now, with this, you have to think about what happens after those storms go through. You have lighter rain after that. Maybe the field got soaked, and you have slightly lower than high risk impact conditions. But it's really, we're watching that lightning because if that heavy rain was falling without lightning, you'd see that high risk conditions throughout the game, but that lightning is really the X factor here.
Yeah, when you're looking at Notre Dame Stadium, it doesn't have to be right at the stadium. It can be 8 miles around the stadium is when you trigger that 30-minute automatic delay. Every additional strike within that 8-mile range is an additional 30 minutes on top. So you can look at extended delay. I mean, look, it's the first 3 quarters right now. As we get closer to kickoff, we'll tighten this up. Or it could be 2 different type of delays. You could have one right at the kickoff or before the game even starts, pushes back kickoff, and then one at halftime. Overall, I don't know if you got to dive into looking at the models on this. It doesn't seem like there's much backfilling, right? It does look like it's that main line as it marches in.
It really
that's going to be the chaos.
Like very much like this is a delay focused, and the timing of the delay is what's going to matter, and then also the winds out ahead of the storm before the delay are going to have an impact on this game too. Especially like you don't want to be kicking a field goal right before a lightning delay would be occurring. With that, you think about those lightning delays, and afterwards you get towards lower ROWI conditions with lower winds, much lower rain chance, and then the temperatures are like slightly cooler, but not like anything crazy.
Yeah, and when you look at this as a ranked matchup, of course, so I think Notre Dame is still obviously trying to vie for a college football playoff opportunity. I think SC maybe has a chance, but that's outside, and you have to win these games, right? You have to have some powerful opponents that you have taken down. This is not the only college game that's going to be impacted by active weather. We're going to take you all the way out towards Houston, where the Cougars are going to be hosting on the Wildcats, and it just shows you how expansive this frontal boundary is. It's the same one, by the way. So this thing is going to, the low that's actually causing all of this is moving over the Great Lakes. And so that's close to South Bend, right? That's the northern side. But when you think you go all the way down south towards Houston, now you're looking at how unstable that atmosphere is. Precipitation impact maxed out, wind, of course, and temperature. But this environment is a little more humid and warm. And this is an earlier kickoff right at noon.
Yeah, and this is something where you could see multiple rounds closer into the Houston area versus further north. With that, you're still looking at those lightning delay chances. You're still, and those impacts generally benefit the home team with that. Other than that, your wins, your longer field goals, your longer passes, but not quite as much here. It's really more about concerns from those outflow boundaries from those thunderstorms, and then the
Yeah.
wind as it picks up as the storm is approaching.
Yeah, and one component to this for the severe risk in and of itself, it's damaging wind primary. We do have a low end tornadic risk, and then there is a hail threat. And when you're thinking about this far south, the atmosphere is going to be destabilized, but I don't know if there's enough cold air support aloft this far south in Texas. But that is another component. I mean, we actually saw that earlier in the season in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where they had significant hail. And so that one obviously would be a major factor as well as we watch this play out. We have one more college football game we want to show you. The Baylor Bears are going to be going out to the TCU Horned Frogs. So again, we're back in Texas, but now we're on the northern side of the state. So it shows you that it's the same system all up and down from the Midwest through the Mississippi Valley region into the Gulf Coast, and it's the same threat time and time again, but it's at a different time frame. Again, this is an early kickoff, just like what we saw out of Houston, and a similar type setup. What I think is interesting about this, Jared, is even in the middle of the game, medium risk of weather impact, but of course you're seeing the lightning bolts, which means that ever-threatening delay still is looming the entire time throughout this game.
Yeah, this is something we're going to see narrowed down even more with the model forecasts tomorrow morning. But this is like there's going to be thunderstorms all over the Metroplex during this time. Very decent odds that you see like a lightning delay at some point because it just has to be within 8 miles. It doesn't even have to be over the stadium itself before they call it in. I know it was a bit controversial earlier this year with El Presidente saying, "Why are we doing all this?"
Yeah, he's like, we shouldn't do lightning delays. And back in my day, I've never had one. Well, player safety, of course, everybody's safety.
It really is more about the fan safety more than anything.
Yeah, more than anything.
Because those are the ones, guys, that are out there to buy those lightning rods. But
your lightning rods are way high up, in the nosebleeds tickets. You're trying to save a few extra dollars, and you put yourself right next to the lightning itself. Those are the college games, by the way, that are going to be impacted. We do have some NFL football that's going to be impacted by this as well. And so we're going to bring this up full to show you where's this game being taken place. That's actually going to be in London. Yeah, it's the last of the international game. Los Angeles, the Rams going out and taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I would tell you early on in the season, if I saw this game on the schedule, I wouldn't be like, too impressed. I'd be like, it's probably be a decent game. Now, where we stand, two really good-looking teams right now, and taking it out towards London at Wembley Stadium, iconic one. What I think is going to be impressive by this in our regards for the ROWI, Jared, is how different the rain is in these areas, right? Because now we're talking about Europe, a little different than what you're talking about with the Gulf Coast in a type of rain setup. Because the Gulf Coast, you're looking at sparks flying the entire time. This looks like more of that nuisance rain that just won't quit.
100%, Steve. So this one here, you have actually like slightly lower rain rate, or definitely lower rain rates that you're getting in these thunderstorms, but the rain is going to be a far greater coverage and it's going to be persistent. It's likely going to be raining like almost the entire game. And you have a good amount of ambient wind with this storm as it moves through. So you have to worry about your field goals too with that. It's like both of these are going to be happening at the same time. Very good odds that you're going to be seeing some sorts of problems with the wet weather during this game. Certainly, if I were the coaches of these teams, I would be practicing those wet ball drills all the time, and I would be rethinking my fourth down calculus when I'm in the edge of field goal range.
Yeah, it's interesting to see this setup. I was looking at the kind of the numbers on the team so far this year. I mean, obviously the Rams, they got a gunslinger, right? Matthew Stafford, and they're an air raid attack, averaging about 270 yards per game, which is pretty good. And then you look at the Jaguars. They're a little more balanced, but they are run heavy. They got 140 yards. ETN's had a resurgence. And so that kind of brings us ultimately to this matchup. We're going to dive deeper into it as we take a look at the specific players, like the quarterbacks, that are going to be impacted by this type of setup. Because remember, it's the wet ball drill. We've talked about it for the kickers, ball security, turnover battle, but also even just throwing the ball. How do they do? Let's get into the elemental edge. We're going to start off with the old gunslinger, Matthew Stafford. Look at the board, right? No rain stats, 272 yards, averages about a touchdown and a half, and then just underneath a one interception in his games that there's been no rain. I know, Jared, you're the one who cooks these stats up. Mm-hmm. Do you remember how many games he has?
I was just pulling it up. If you saw my eyes dart down, I was double checking to make sure I had them right. So Stafford has played most of his career indoors. Think about that. The Lions, he played indoors. out here in LA is an indoor stadium with, I guess technically there's a little bit of open air, but nothing that anything could get through. Okay, random side tangent. Do
Okay.
you remember that atmospheric river that went through during the national championship games a
Yeah.
couple years ago?
Yeah.
And like you had the fans having problems on the outside because the wind and the rain was like sweeping through the concessions area, but the game on the field itself, totally nothing, totally good.
Right? Untouched. It
Right.
is amazing to see how they built that stadium to make it feel like it's open and airy and it's cool, but it's actually barricaded completely through that. And so, well, I also thought, sorry, another side tangent. With that, no, is when you saw they brought in for the soccer player, is it Sung Jung Kim or whatever? He's from Korea. He played for Tottenham Spurs. Remember, we had a game in Tottenham that was last weekend. He was on the sideline watching last week's game, and he was looking at the stadium like what you're talking about. He's like, I would have never thought in my lifetime there would have been a better stadium than Tottenham. And I'm looking at this right now in lo-fi. It's like unreal what they have been able to create out there. But to your point, that means that Matthew Stafford has been in a bubble for most of his career, so I'm guessing he doesn't have many.
Doesn't have many, so it's actually only 4 listed as rain recorded at the station at the start of the game. Now, it's obviously not starting when rain wasn't recorded there, and rain comes into the game later on.
Yeah,
those aren't being counted. Those are actually like factored into the no rain stats, quote unquote. What you'll see in the data, the historical data, because it's not the best of the world, is you'll see, you have your decreases in passing efficiency in rain games. You also see it during cloudy games, that it's a lesser one. And the reason why you see it in those cloudy games is usually those cloudy games have rain more often than something that's clear air at the start having rain later on. So you actually see a slight effect on that. Not a complete side tangent. It is very relevant to how these stats are created, but it is only 4. Four is the number. All that buildup, all this year, 4 games that are listed for Matthew Stafford as in these rain stats. And you see that decrease in passing totals. You see the decrease in passing touchdowns. And the interceptions, a little more variable, slightly less than he has in an average outdoor game.
All right, so that's one side of the ball. So I'm looking up the soccer play because I feel like I totally butchered that when I was thinking about it. So I'm going to get that. I think everybody, if you're listening to this, you understand who I was talking about. Tottenham Spurs Kim. He came over, now he's playing for the LA Galaxy. And so what we're looking at here, though, is Trevor Lawrence now. So what we see with him, I believe we had talked about this, only 3 games. Right? He has 3 games.
It's only 3.
So it's almost comparable, right? 4 and 3 games with this. But again, the big thing is if it is raining at the start of the game, that's the only way it gets counted. I mean, him playing for the Jags, there's probably been a lot of games where it's come in mid-game. It could be, or towards the end.
I can recall a Jags-Ravens game a few years back where that happened.
Yeah.
But even with this, it is impressive, even with such small numbers, that it is as tight as it is in terms of like his passing totals and his passing touchdowns. Now, granted, when you get sample sizes as small as 3 games, more things can come into play, like game script, which will matter. Like, did they have a fumble earlier? They have to pass a lot to catch up. But it's interesting that there's no drop off at all, seemingly, for Trevor.
Right. And so impressive. It almost feels like you want the rain if you're looking at this from Trevor Lawrence, and also just what your team has shown so far this season. When you're talking about having ETN have a revival, and they've been established there. So that's the international game that's going to be impacted by this as well. So we'll be watching that. I want to bring it back stateside here real quickly as we take a look at, right, we talked about the severe weather. That was on Saturday. What happens on Sunday now is that continues a march to the east. A big component in all of this, though, is that it's going to move into the mountains, the Appalachian Range. And there's really no big football stadiums there for NFL, of course, right? So we're not worried about that. There is one game, though. And it's that front moving over the Great Lakes, Lake Erie. You got the Browns. Somehow they lost last night, even though they weren't playing, because everybody, talking about Flacco having a revival, of course. And it was so fun to, see him, come back. It was a good shootout, by the way. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that last night. Rodgers and freaking Flacco. Let's go.
I missed most of last weekend live due to our extended coverage. We were on at the same time Sunday during that, but this game was a treat to watch. It was the first full live football game I had been able to see since Friday night college game. I forget what it was at the moment, but it was such a treat. I mean, Joe Flacco airing it out, Aaron Rodgers airing it out. There was no the risk weather impact was extremely low during that, and it showed. They did not have trouble slinging that thing deep.
No, you saw Rodgers Hail Mary at the end. The longest throw in the NFL since 2017.
Well, they kind of cheated that
What?
stat. So they cheated that stat by comparing it to completions.
Oh,
So if it was completed, it would have been the longest one. I didn't see what the stats were for incompletions, but I'm sure there have been like comparable incompletions of a similar length. Now it's still very impressive, but the stat was a little
yeah. No,
cheaty
that's
with
totally
that.
misleading. Like, what are we even comparing to?
This is why I'm here, Steve. I'm here to sniff that out.
Thank you. And as we're clearing things up, I found the name, and I want to just come clean by saying I totally got this wrong. It's Sung Hyung Min is the Tottenham Spurs player that's now coming to LAFC. So, and he's been playing with them. He was the one that was obviously surprised about how great the stadium's built there in SoCal. Let's focus on the game at hand, which is not going to be so great. And I can speak to that.
A single game of SoCal. We spent like 3 minutes talking about
it.
Relevant 3 minutes.
Yeah, right. People on the pod are like, what are we listening to right now? Am I listening to football or am I listening to another type of football? By the way, the Dolphins, they don't do well with cold games. I don't think this is going to be necessarily cold, but the windy and wet conditions there, that is going to be a major factor, not only for the Dolphins, of course. This is going to be for the Browns, but I think for this, we've talked about a couple high risk of weather impact games by just the rain itself and the lightning. I want everybody to look at the wind impact on this one, a 7.8. I mean, so we're looking at a high threshold for that in and of itself. The wind is going to be absolutely screaming because of what we had talked about with the jet stream, big dip into that, and this setting up over the Great Lakes. As this comes in, I mean, you realistically could see 50 to 60 mile per hour winds going over Huntington Bank Field.
Yeah, and the key to note is that the 50 to 60 mile per hour wind, which we got like, a tweet that got quite a bit of traction yesterday, that would only be during like really a thunderstorm passage or like a very, very strong outflow boundary preceding one. So that would like very likely coincide with a lightning delay if you got something that strong. So in terms of the actual impacts on the game, it would be that ambient wind, which is very high. And so we are like, this is out of all games, any weather impact out of all the games that this weekend, especially at the NFL level, the wind impacts from this and the likelihood of seeing a decrease in passing efficiency and just passing totals, and the likelihood of or the difficulty of kicking these longer field goals, even field goals over 40 yards, despite how good these kickers are on the record, like those will see like significant dips when you get into that 20 to 25 mile per hour range. This is like a high impact game for a reason, and the wind is the most reliable one because that ambient wind forecast is far less likely to go and change than the timing of these thunderstorms.
That's a great point. So there's going to be an impact regardless. The peak intensity may fluctuate, whether it's second quarter or at some point if the thunderstorms do set up. But notice it's likely to stay sub-severe. On the northern side of this frontal boundary, it doesn't look like it has enough instability. But here's the thing. This is so close to Lake Erie. We talk about a thing that's called lake-enhanced rainfall. So that rainfall that's on the southern shores of a Great Lake or a big body of water, actually that rain rate is greater than what you would see elsewhere with that same frontal boundary. So what I mean by that is that when this comes down in Huntington Bank Field or northern Ohio in general, you are going to see that limited visibility. You're going to see that it's even more difficult to get traction, and the ponding on the field is more likely, especially when you're talking about northern Ohio. I mean, if we were down south, of course, because it's more tropical lake variety, you don't get tropical lake rainfall here. What you get is lake enhanced rainfall, and that is what you're seeing along with that wind. I could see this being an absolutely brutal game. You already have two teams that are doing bad, right? They're struggling. And so that already speaks to the turnover aspect. And I think there's a lot of chirping in the locker room already. Like, obviously, there is a lot of emotions running high with both teams right now. And so it's going to play out on the field. And when you get something messy like this and you start making some mistakes that are likely to happen, I think another thing that kind of gets overlooked at with this, Jared, is that when a team is struggling and everybody's trying to get that momentum, how difficult that is in an event like this, where trying to hit your timing is completely disrupted. And so the frustration mounts quicker in an event like this, where you're not getting to your blocks on time. Maybe there's more penalties that are flying out because you are trying to hold on to somebody in order to complete that block, whatever it is. It just makes the game even more difficult when you're already struggling.
Yeah, and I would like to point out, so the viewers on the visual platforms wouldn't be seeing this, but the audio platforms, We did just get our ROWI is constantly updating every several or so minutes. We'll get new forecasts getting in, feeding it all the time. We did actually just tick up slightly on this with the
Cool.
Dolphins Browns game here. We are expecting like those higher conditions are slightly more likely with the latest forecast that we just had even a moment ago as we were talking. Now we're going to see if some more changes. You make sure you keep tuning back in for that. One thing I will say, and I'm not like a crazy gambler at all. I very rarely will put bets on these games. Like that's like mostly
Yeah.
the past. This game, I am really going to be cooking something up in terms of like looking at all these different receivers across the board from the Dolphins and the Browns. Tua Tagovailoa, Dylan Gabriel, their passing totals, and then just even the score of the game. This is something that is very likely to be like an underfest where you have a lot of unders all across the board. Now, you have your risk
Yeah.
parlays, but it's something that to keep in mind that this is a game that if you have any, it is the most reliable betting game of the weekend is to bet a lot of unders for the props of the yardage, receivers, quarterbacks, and then even a little bit of the scoring.
It's a great analysis. Great point. At times we do this podcast, we talk about the player impact, but we're here for you if you're betting and also on fantasy. If any of these guys are on your roster and you're thinking a question mark, okay, should I or should I not? This is the type of game where you almost want to sit them, unless they're the running backs, right? Because you're going to think they're going to get the ball a little bit more. But if you're talking about the receivers now, or even the quarterbacks, I mean, the league's been injury prone. Maybe you're stuck with somebody right now, and you're wondering, okay, I don't know if this person's going to be good or not. I mean, this is a game to stay away from. Like, honestly, if I'm fantasy, I don't want to have to be looking at this as the beginning of my Sunday, rolling in points and seeing absolute garbage out there and the potential of getting negative points because of just interceptions and turnovers
I mean,
that are
negative
possible.
would be pretty extreme, even for poor old Tua at this point.
Is anything, I mean, I don't know. This is pretty bad. But hey, great point with the updates. That's going to keep rolling in. So we encourage you. We do these podcasts every Tuesday and Wednesday. They air at 5 p.m. Eastern. Then we post them on social media so you get the visuals of that. We also do bonus episodes, and that's what we're doing right now. And it's all from what you want us to talk about. We'll get you the updates of those games as they develop throughout the week. And then on Thursday, we do tailgates as well. And then, Jared, even the weekend, we're staying locked in as these games get closer.
Absolutely, Steve. You know what? We're going to see you guys on the Fox Weather Stream this weekend, and we will see you next week.
Let's get it. Peace.